many different connections that 2Life has with Dr. Coughlin. As Jeff shared, he was my advisor for my thesis, and Amy and Lisbeth, our chief of real estate, were my readers. But Joe and Amy also served together on the Governor's Council. Amy's on the Housing Committee, Joe's on the Technology and Innovation Committee. But we've also had fun together. We've hosted Joe and his colleagues at Coleman House, where our executive director, Robin Nason, put on what's known as the Agnes suit that simulates, the physiology of aging. And we've had our fitness staff go to the AgeLab to learn from them. So it's been a really terrific partnership. And this is just a continuation of that. Personally, Joe's been a great source of support to me and connecting me with the networks, throughout Massachusetts and beyond, and kind of always being able to have him at my fingertips if I need to ask him a question. So tonight, I really encourage you to pay close attention to what Joe has to say. He has a unique way of presenting thought-provoking concepts really accessibly and memorably. I have no doubt that his presentation will stay with you for days to come. And as Joe's speaking, please put your questions in the chat so that we can come back to them for Q&A. And now let me tell you a little bit more about Joe. So Dr. Coughlin founded and continues to lead the MIT AgeLab. He's a researcher, teacher, speaker, and advisor. His work explores how global demographics, technology, and changing consumer behaviors are transforming business and society. He teaches in MIT's Department of Urban Studies and Planning, where I studied, and the Sloan School's Advanced Management Program. He's a senior contributor to Forbes. I encourage you to Google it. And his recent book is The Longevity Economy, Unlocking the World's Fastest Growing, Most Misunderstood Market. As tonight is about technology, I can't help but suggest that you also follow him on Twitter at Joseph Coughlin. And with that, please give a warm smile or, wave to Joe. Thank you.
Elise, thank you so much. Amy, thank you for having me. It's a real privilege to be with all of you. It's been great to work with many of your team. You've been kind enough to have my students come over and visit. But just so you know, Elise is one of my greatest prides as a student. She will go on, as she's already done great things for you. She will go on to do great things, I'm sure, despite the education she got from me and others.
And Joe, you rub off on people. See, Joe wears bow ties, right?
So, there you go.
And so now I wear scarves.
See, you have to have a signature. That's just as a side point. I actually interned as a kid for Dan Moynihan, Senator of New York, and that's where the bow tie became a goof, and then suddenly it became a thing. But who knows? Hey, folks, thank you for having me. I want to take a few minutes. And frankly, kind of the MIT fashion, learning at the end of a fire hose. But we should have a little bit of fun too. We want to talk about that technology thing is what I was asked to talk about and how it might be changing in old age and the like. And hopefully I'll say some things that are provocative, but I warn you, get the kids away from the screen because technology is really cool and some of it's kind of creepy too. And it's already there. And so there's a lot of trade-offs and what it can do and whether you want it to do that. And what you're, shall we say, giving up in terms of dignity, privacy, and a number of other things. So I'm going to share my screen. This will not be death by PowerPoint. I'm not big on dense charts, but I do like pictures. So Elise, thank you for that introduction again. And Amy, good to see you, even if it is virtually. So let's get through. I want to tell you that if you like what I have to say, these are the folks to give credit to. We got about 35 people that are in the lab. Some of them students, many full-time research, some faculty, about 1/3 every flavor of psychology you could imagine, 1/3 engineering and data science, and another third it's kind of soup, nuts, and cantaloupes, anthropology, social work, doctor, economists, political scientists, whatever it might be. And why such a group? We pride ourselves in being, frankly, the first multidisciplinary center to study the intersection of aging, consumer behavior, and technology. That's a multidisciplinary approach, which requires that many disciplines and frankly, that many creative folks. So thanks to them. If you don't like it, blame me and keep it to yourself. Just to give you a very quick look, this is what the lab looked like, at least when I saw it last March. I have not been back on campus since then. About 20 years ago this month is when I put Miss Daisy, this vehicle, in the second floor of building E40. My question I wanted to ask was not how old is an older driver, but how can technology enable older drivers to remain seamlessly and safely on the road for as long as practically possible? part of what we do in the lab and what you want to think about technology, what it does is not just the functions of what it does, but how does it redefine problems? How do we rethink what we want to do? Never, ever think of technology as simply doing what you do better. And we'll come back to that in a moment. It should be about what you do differently. This is our data science group. Again, they're not there, but they're all working from home. I'm very proud to say the students and staff have been able to deploy hardware into people's homes around the world via FedEx. We've been to focus groups and surveys online. So we're up and running, even though, shall we say, it's a ghost town. This is the main studio. This is where we host folks like Amy and others that come to visit. So hopefully when the walls come down, we all can come back out and come for a visit. But the bottom line is what we do is we look at transportation and livable communities, the design of community and planning, and of course the vehicles. By the way, since you're all in the Boston area, I have to warn you, we do have 13 vehicles in various states of autonomy on the road, even right now. So if you do see a car that's marked AgeLab, run to the second floor. You have no idea who's either driving it or, more importantly, who's not driving it. What's the future of the home and home logistics and in technology and services coming to the house and home and apartment near you? Caregiving and well-being. We are operating the largest panel of caregivers around the world and trying to understand those micro moments and those micro tasks to understand how caregiving can improve their lives, and in longevity and retirement planning. But that's an intro just so you know where I was coming from and the context of how we think. And as Elise and others were talking about, the Agnes suit, the Age Gain Now Empathy System, is often the star of our show here. And it basically gives you, shall we say, the joy of not feeling age, because age is, birthdays don't predict much. Chronic conditions do. So in this particular suit is about arthritis, diabetic retinopathy, neuropathy, loss of muscle mass. And many of you have been where you've actually seen our work and experienced it. We are the folks who helped redesign the last iteration of CVS. Lower shelves, better lighting, wider aisles, places for older women to put their purses while they check out. So you see, one of the things that we believe is that technology and design coming together make the world better, not just for older people, but for everyone. So let's get this going. I want to talk about technology, but a recent paper that I put together, and I'm not sure if any of you have seen it, but it's on the web and we can certainly provide a link to it, called 4 Waves of Technology and Aging. You see, tech and aging has been coming for a very long time, but it's had a number of iterations, shall we say, a number of waves that have come along, and none of them have totally receded. So you'll see, shall we say, ghosts of ideas past in almost every piece of technology that you see aimed at an aging population. That first part is aging is a problem of interface. Now you have to ask yourself, is that basically a remote control? Or a self-defense device. But this is for years, decades. Lots of researchers in engineering, human factors, social work were trying to fix the problem of knobs and dials and making sure that things were bigger and easy to grasp. Not incorrect, but woefully incomplete. Not to mention bad design. No one wants this on their couch, let alone having it fall on their foot. So this is where technology and aging started. And many great labs and companies are still working on it. Yes, usability matters, but also we shouldn't make up with just bad engineering and bad design. How about this one? The next wave, which is still with us, aging and technology as a smart medical problem. I don't know if you know this, but after a certain age, generally it's defined around 50, you will not care about anything about whether you've fallen out or fallen down and your blood pressure and taking your medication. Something you may want to think about. Remember, technology is not just what it does for you, it's what it says about you. Personal emergency response systems, a help, I've fallen, I can't get up service. Less than 5% of the people over 65 who are frail actually use the system. Keep in mind that in a survey we did across the country 2 years ago, only 30% of people over 75 consider themselves old. But 100% of the people who wear something on their wrist or on their jacket saying, help, I'm about to fall down, know they are. And by the way, Panasonic, Toto, and others have invented this toilet, which is on the market, not just in Japan and Israel and parts of Northern Europe, and now here in the United States. This toilet, and I think you probably all have had your dinner, but if you haven't, just relax. Shall we say, downloads from the user, your body weight, your blood pressure, did you take your medication, are you eating what you should be eating, and then uploads that data to a call center, hospital, whatever it might be. Yes, it's already on the market. It was obscenely priced to begin with, but now it's coming down, so say a little cheaper. By the way, the toilet is also on the market in the UK, where one of the toilet companies is wired to a grocery store chain, and where it facilitates home delivery of the foods that your toilet is deemed missing from your diet. And then there's aging as an economic opportunity. And this is kind of where my book is, The Longevity Economy, that we should not look at aging as a problem to be solved, but as an opportunity, social, economic, societally, as an opportunity. And we saw this crush of companies and organizations come in there. Venture capitalists, Panasonic, Best Buy has its own group now installing hardware into the lives of caregivers and to older adults. P&G's coming out with special razors. Amazon has a platform for caregiving. Stanley Black & Decker is doing work with pill dispenser systems. And as of last year, the Consumer Electronics Show, the techie geek show of the world in Las Vegas, now has a major and permanent part of it dedicated to aging and technology. But one of the things I get worried about is that when we design things for the old, it's not that we necessarily say that young people can't use it. It's just that we also fail to think about good psychology and marketing. If I design an old man's car, the adage goes, I can guarantee you that a young man and a young woman won't buy it. By the way, I can also guarantee that an old man and an older woman will run with their hair on fire away from it. So we have to be very careful of how we think about technology. Stigma matters. Then finally, the fourth wave, and this is the heart of the paper that I was mentioning to you, but also where 2Life, I think, can excel in terms of how you integrate not just making housing, quality housing affordable, but soon how to make technology affordable as well. So when I say about equity and inclusion, it's not just about race and creed and location. It's also about affordability. This stuff is, shall we say, with the Boston vernacular, wicked expensive when it first comes out. But many of us can remember when we bought a computer, and I'll show my age. In 1985, I bought a computer over in West Newton for $5,000, twin floppy drives, 4 hertz, $5,000. Today, you could probably buy a server to power all of 2Life for $5,000. It does get cheaper, but in the meantime, it's a matter of equity as to whether people can have the access to afford the benefits of technology. Think about this. There is no trusted advisor, source of information. There is no stamp of approval of what is out there. Is it good? Should I use it? And how do I integrate it into my home? There is a dearth of information on technology for caregivers and older adults. And broadband, we have found, especially during COVID, is not, shall we say, universally available. In fact, even the federal government, who shows you where broadband is available, really isn't, because it's not just about broadband, it's about speed. So in many urban areas, yeah, they say they have broadband, but they don't have speed. In many rural areas, well, they don't have much. So let me just kind of give you a tour of where technology is going. I'm going to give you 4 F's. The function part, what is technology doing for operations and people on a functional level? How's it connecting friends and fun? We don't think about that other F word around technology. In fact, this is a big new frontier people need to think about. And yeah, fashion. All of us want to age well, but we also want to look good, feel good, and have, shall we say, dignity as we age. Technology should not be stigmatizing, it should be supportive. So let's talk about function first. Something you may want to think about in the operations of your communities. Exoskeletal systems are now being used by the auto industry, Panasonic, the delivery system community, when the people start having to move heavy boxes or heavy people around, these systems are keeping people from getting hurt or keeping them from being injured. They're already now on the market, and they are now beginning to come into senior housing. In Japan, we're seeing robots now starting to replace people because, frankly, they're running out of people, and the people they have are often too frail to be able to be caregivers. So somewhat, as I said, cool and creepy, Robear out there can pick up a person and move them in a senior housing facility. By the way, just because I'm showing the technology does not necessarily mean that I'm advocating the technology. This one in particular is a little creepy. And as we found during COVID, technology became the new toilet paper. I would suggest to you that the pandemic has served as a propellant, moving technology into the home 3 to 5 or maybe more years faster than it would have before. But it also showed the gaps. It showed the technology that was expensive, that people couldn't get. It also showed the power of it, that voice accessibility really eliminated that first wave of technology about whether the buttons and the keyboards worked. We're seeing the idea of technology in the home being not just, shall we say, being able to provide you company, but to dispense pills. This is an Amazon product distributed by Stanley Black & Decker that has a little bit of an emotional interface and reminds you of their medications. On the market today, but again, the affordability, it's $699 plus a monthly service fee. Not exactly cheap. Samsung is out there moving very fast with its F economy technology, where your refrigerator already knows that I am out of my two favorite advisors, that is Ben and Jerry, and will start to facilitate delivery of the food before I even know that I'm out of that ice cream. But your refrigerator will be talking to your toaster. We already know that your toilet is talking to many other folks. The bottom line is your home, your property, wherever you are going to be able to have sensors throughout the place and will be communicating with third-party providers. John Hancock, just this past fall, released this wearable. It doesn't tell you the time. It doesn't tell you how many steps you had. Believe it or not, it's a life insurance product that actually monitors your stress level. It monitors your movement, but also the stress in your voice. It is now the beginning of dynamically pricing insurance in real time. Again, this is an Amazon product with John Hancock distribution. And don't forget the technology that has been the lifeblood of convenience-hungry millennials. The on-demand economy, especially during COVID, we found is not just for those cool kids out there, it has become for all of us. In fact, in many ways, assisted living has gone virtual for many of us. In fact, if anything, COVID has been a retirement fire drill for all of us at all ages. And Philips licensed this technology from MIT, giving you a checkup a day, looking at your face, your eyes, your blood pressure, your temperature. The idea is that technology is no longer about detecting when something's wrong. It's now about being proactive. I don't want to know when you find that you're on the floor. I want to know that your gait has changed and you're likely to be on the floor soon. This technology, one of our teams has developed at the lab. This one does everything from home monitoring of movement to moisture control, smoke detection, how well you've been moving overall. This is only a prototype. It'll get a lot prettier. But the bottom line is it wears an entire house together with one device and brings in other service providers like food delivery, household help, whatever it might be, and gives you this rather, shall we say, busy map. It can actually provide a map with, is this person moving? Where have they been? What have they been doing? So every day, every week, every month, you can get an activity system. Again, we have to make decisions on, do we want this type of intrusion or do we want to call it this type of support in our lives, in our homes? How about friends and fun? You never hear the F word when it comes to older adults. You always hear blood pressure, pill reminder system, help, I fall and can't get up. But how about fun? Well, believe it or not, you know, Facebook has now become called the social media nursing home. The fastest growing group of people on there are women over 50. This is why if I ever want to horrify undergraduates, I ask them, do you have a Facebook page? They run in horror because no one wants to be on Facebook posting what they did Friday night to have their mother and grandmother see it on Saturday morning. This is technology we developed not too long ago. It was about exercise virtually online to enable you to be able to drive and feel strong and flexible and the like. And so as a result, we created this system that, and by the way, this is an MIT grad, architecture major many years ago. He was using our PlayStation system and he would exercise every day with a newfound friend in Taiwan. So he would exercise at night. His buddy in Taiwan would exercise in the morning. In the UK and throughout the United States, we have a whole new condition called Wii Wrist and Wii Elbow, where older adults in senior centers and beyond are competing in Wii bowling leagues, but they're competing with such verve and vigor that they're blowing out ligaments and getting hurt. We're seeing Silver Sneakers, as many of you know, the largest exercise program around the country sponsored by Tivity Health is now virtually providing services online one at a time. But where the technology is taking us is this, ever so expensive, whether it's Mirror or a Peloton, the idea of virtual communities and virtual coaches coaching you wherever you may be. And many of you probably have already seen one of our students develop this, Rendeavor, virtual reality to take you to Machu Picchu, the Louvre, or frankly down the street. By the way, as a matter of trivia, you may know this, Elise, as a matter of trivia, what we found is that people over age 85, when given the choice to travel anywhere, the number one choice is, please take me to the street that I grew up on. I'd like to see what it looks like today. And robots are among us, not simply to remind us to take our meds, but they are now there as companions, social robots, emotional support animals. Well, now we got emotional support robots. Again, I said this would be between cool and creepy. In fact, one robot is designed, it's called Now, to insult you once or twice a day because they believe by insulting you or telling you a joke, that will keep you cognitively sharp. I've eliminated that problem. I have teenagers at home. I can get insulted as much as I want. And then finally, fashion. How is technology going to take away the stigma? Can we build things that people actually want to have on them or in them or whatever it might be? We see that Apple has by stealth got into the aging market. Yes, you can detect AFib, but did anyone ask the following question, why the current generation of Apple Watches will detect if you've fallen and call emergency services if and only if you somehow put into your profile you're 65 and older? Because we all know that people under 65 don't fall, but somebody at Apple decided old age begins at 65. It must be a law of physics. One of my first graduate students, Cedric Hutchins, very proud of him, developed this company that many of you may have seen in Apple stores and elsewhere. It's called Withings. The idea that these smart devices don't have to be stigmatizing. They don't have to be big, beige, and boring. They can be kind of cool. And wearables, whether they're glasses or whatnot, you know, the geeks among us are making it all easier for us in older age to wear things that give us augmented reality, to remind us who we're speaking to, where we are, where we're shopping. Suddenly those little reminders that frankly all of us can use, but maybe more can an older age can use more. And finally, getting close to the end here, the one big thing that I think that we should give credit to the electronics industry and frankly kids wandering around with earphones is that now that everyone's got something hanging out of their ear, it's not too weird to have a hearing aid. Look at these earrings. That's not an earring. Those are hearing aids. And with the glasses there, we now have a whole new generation of hearables. Because remember, it's not just what they do for you, it's what they say about you. The average person who needs a hearing aid waits 10 years beyond hearing deficit to actually start investigating whether they need one. Finally, this is my thoughts I want to leave with all of you. 2Life is doing amazing work, not just the places and the spaces, but the people, the dream. What Amy and her team are doing is unbelievable. And trust me, until last March, I go around the world every single week, and you guys are something to be envied. But let me leave you with a few ideas of what you may want to think about for the future. And I think you are uniquely positioned to do it. First, it's all about partnership. And I cannot think of a better organization that knows about partnership than all of you. But the partnerships are going to be a little different now. We're going to start to see partnerships with the pharmaceutical industry, who is not just dispensing molecules, but wants to be in the services business. The Village movement that started in Beacon Hill. My cousin right here is getting Parkinson's therapy from Johns Hopkins Hospital. She's in a senior center in very far upstate New York. No, not Westchester County. I mean, real upstate New York. That is welcome to Canada part. She would never be able to get that kind of therapy living in the middle of the boondocks as she does, unless they partner to have that kind of telemedicine service brought to her. We're seeing something during the pandemic that we all hoped for, but never thought would be possible, that the big chain stores who have got a logistics powerhouse that none of us can rival, actually become partners out there. Whether it's about dosing or whatever it might be, these are your new partners that you must approach, whether it's for services, supports, funding, whatever it might be. They need you as much as you need them. UPS is well before COVID was talking about putting nurses, Merck trained nurses in UPS trucks, the most trusted brand in America, coming to your mother's house to provide vaccinations, to provide medication, to come in the home, to change oxygen tanks and the like. Our vision at the lab is that you're going to leverage the Internet of Things, the sharing economy, with the interface of these smart devices to have smart brands come into our homes. Well, why not 2Life? I would invite you gladly in my home, or when she was around, my mother-in-law's home in Newton Center. So this is no longer about where we live. It is no longer within the fence line. It is well into the community. 2Life is not just a place. It is an entire community in and out. And then finally, one of the things to think about, how do we provide accessibility to all these great technologies? How can we get to employers and employed caregivers so their parents know about what the choices are and the technologies might be? How do we know that toilet paper and technology have come to be that important? How do we make it so that people can afford it? How do we get subsidized purchasing from government or such large procurements from government to bring down the prices of valuable technology and services? How do we get broadband to be in every corner of where we live, whether it's in rural America, suburban, or indeed in urban areas? Broadband indeed is the new water. How do we teach people to be able to use these technologies that are still on the other side of the digital divide? How do we protect them from privacy infractions and dignity and other things where they get hacked financially? And in many cases, the hacking could actually be life-threatening. And then finally, something that all of you do very well. The next generation of people in aging services are going to be not helped by technology. They will be profoundly transformed by technology. At the one time, an aging professional now is going to have to be an advisor, a teacher, a partner, tech savvy, an integrator of services, and yes, a caregiver. On that note, let me end this. So hopefully we have a moment or two for questions. Sorry if I went over time. I'm going to show my age. Elise, don't laugh at me, but believe it or not, that is a typewriter. It is a Selectric typewriter. Many of that are listening know that. And I thought it was really cool when I was doing my master's thesis. But you know, when we had a typewriter, when we got computers, everyone was thinking about, gee, how great this is. But ask yourself the following. If we used the computers then in 1984 and 85, or the computers we have now, the same exact way that we use the typewriter, we would fail at optimizing the power of the technology. We would still have typing pools and the like. The bottom line is what I want you to think about as you think about technology and the two-life experience, the two-life community. Please do not think about how technology is going to improve your operations or simply improve the lives of your residents. That's noble, but it's incomplete. Technology profoundly changes what you do, your processes, your goals, your possibilities. It is an endless frontier of imagination. On that note, again, I am privileged to be here with all of you. Thank you for the work you do in the community that I love. And I'll stop sharing. And if there's time for questions, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was everything I hoped for. So we do have about 10 minutes for questions. And I have one kind of right off the bat that I want to share with you. One of the things you said is that technology isn't just what it does for you, but what it says about you. And you know, a lot of companies, Donna's shared with me numerous articles about companies that are hiring innovation ambassadors. You run a lifestyle leaders panel. We're a resident-centric organization. How do we use innovation ambassadors to transition older adults through adaptation and adoption of technology over the years? And how do they become makers of that technology themselves? So it's a twofold. It's a co-creation and an adaptation.
You know, so the lifestyle leaders that you're speaking of for the benefit of the audience are a group of highly selective and biased group. They tend to be more educated, higher income, and more tech savvy. And the reason by definition we have them that biased, if you will, and by the way, now with COVID, they're no longer just in Boston, they are now nationwide. In fact, we're going outside the country as well, is that if you don't cut through what they think there is acceptable, you're not going anywhere. Basically, they become the razor blade of a good idea, or whether it's good or bad. So yes, we do need to have more innovation ambassadors getting into the design process at the very beginning. You know, I quote out of my book, Zuckerberg at Facebook made the asinine comment that younger people are simply smarter. No, not quite. We simply need to bring people into the process. Now, before I become one of those folks saying, bring older people into the process and they'll show you what can be done. That's true to a point. But remember, technology that's truly innovative does not simply respond to the customer. Any idiot can respond to the focus group. But the internet would have never been invented by a focus group. We always have to have the people that will be willing to excite and delight, to anticipate, not simply to respond. So we need the consumer in the loop, but we cannot be limited by what they know today.
Great, thanks. So our next question is sort of focused around wave 2 that you described, you know, aging as a medical problem with a little bit of economy thrown in. So how are seniors, housing care providers, and health insurers engaging one another? Who's paying for what? What great pilots are you seeing in this country and in other countries?
It's interesting is that it took a global pandemic crisis to have us discover telemedicine and to get it paid for. Do you know that telemedicine was actually discussed as a concept in 1895 in the British journal, The Lancet, when this thing called the telephone was invented? So it took over 100 years for us to be able to do something that frankly was really getting traction in the 1950s in a very large way. So the health insurers are moving in that direction, but they are painfully slow. They are always looking for one more validation study. And unfortunately, it's going to take senior housing a little bit of effort as well to demonstrate how these technologies work and that they should be reimbursed. In fact, it's going to have to be somebody who's got the courage to be the first mover to start just going out and do it. Because by the time you wait for reimbursement, it's already been done by somebody else.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So we have a lot of residents, who struggle to adopt with new technologies. And I'm wondering, and I'll admit that this is a biased question, do you think senior living communities can make a stake that we can accelerate quality and we can accelerate connectivity through trusted referrals, references, you name it, as compared to adults living at home?
I do believe that senior housing, and by the way, as a side point, and somebody may want to throw something at me, let's change the name. Words matter, but senior housing, just stop.
Great.
But let's, for a moment though, let's take what we have. We've got an incredibly skilled workforce. We've got passionate residents. I think that we now need to build pipelines from these amazing communities into the home to build a pipeline of trust and service to bring those people into Two Life and other communities like yours by having them get to know you now. Trust is, I'll use an engineering definition of trust. It's called predictability. I don't trust you when I first know you. I have to have a history with you. So being able to bring that into our communities, that will build trust and a community. Last thing, one of the things we often talk about is how younger people are better at technology. They just get it. They're the digerati. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. In fact, I've been thinking about it for several decades. In part, it's true because when you've never seen anything, you're willing to try it at least once. Older people have seen lots of things, so the bar of whether they want to adopt something is frankly a little higher. But there's something else that younger people benefit from that I miss from being in the lab. We always have people around us to show us the new app or how to do this or how to do that. There's a community of learning and education and reinforcement. Senior housing, communities like Two Life could create that community of digerati at any age where people go over your shoulder and say, what are you doing? How'd you do that? Can you show me that? Because that's how the kids learn. And that's how I learn in the lab.
Right. Thanks, Joe. Next question from the audience. So you described a road ahead in the fourth wave that centers equity. Who else needs to be in this conversation with you? And who should we at Two Life be engaging with in our sector to really promote this, laser focus on equity inclusion, which is not just something that you're mentioning today, is something that Two Life has been focused on, for multiple years, and our nation is focused on right now.
So the obvious answer is the government. But remember, the most powerful thing the government can do is set the agenda, making it an issue to be discussed, not by with all deference, and I serve on those committees as well, not just by the aging community, because we're talking to ourselves. It's got to be at the top. It's got to be at the state house, the governor's level, the president's level. Think about this. At the federal level, there is not one single agency that speaks to technology that is not health related for an aging society. So first we need the government there. But let's be practical. To get these things into people's lives, we need a pipeline into every nook and cranny of the United States. We need to get to the utility companies. We need to get to the Verizons, the Xfinities and the like, so they start to create packages that are affordable to get those technologies in. And then let's talk to the retailers who want a space on your countertop. Amazon's invention of Alexa was not simply a smart device. That was a Trojan horse to have a place in your life. So let's create an ecosystem of, shall we say, mutual benefit to make it equitable for all.
All right, Joe, it sounds like I'm getting word that was our last question. So we need to close, but certainly you're leaving me with a lot of exciting ideas. I've seen members of our board and staff taking notes, and it's just a perfect launching point, for the next 3 years with Jeff at the helm. So thank you so much.
Great. Congratulations, Jeff. Elise, I'm ever proud of you. Amy, great stuff. Thank you all for having me. I hope to see you in person sometime.